Welcome to the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning. I hope everyone is well. Welcome to the Age of Fission radio show. My name is Jerome, and I am the Sane Environmentalist. It is the 28th of March, 2018. I am in Eugene, Oregon. It is a little bit cool here. Feels springy. The lilac bushes are starting to get leaves, and other things are starting to pop out leaves, which is a good thing. So spring's coming, folks. Be hopeful. So I kind of, in the last couple of weeks, got off track a little bit as far as the real purpose of our show here, Lonnie and I's show. This is the Age of Fission radio, and it is about the destruction that the nuclear industry is perpetuating upon our people and the planet itself. You know, some people might think that radiation and nuclear isn't a big deal, and other things are more important. And there are many things that are just as important, but for the purpose of this show, we're going to focus on radioactive things. I did a show yesterday. I was on Lonnie's show with a fellow, he calls himself Mr. Truth. He was an engineer that helped build some of the power plants down south in the southeast United States. And he talked about how the operator, contractor, his boss, because he was an engineer, a construction engineer, he noticed that there were airlines that were going to critical safety systems. And these safety systems are the core sprayover system, the main core cooling system, the emergency core cooling system. All these systems are operated by big pneumatic valves. They're driven by air. And that's how they open and close, is the control room sends a signal which actuates an airline, which blows the valve open or close, basically. Sucks it closed or blows it open. Probably actually they're open and then they automatically close when they lose air pressure. But he was saying that the airlines that they were using to attach these valves to the air supply system were, he said they were just the cheapest, lowest grade stainless steel and copper lines that you could get. Not really certified or rated for any kind of major impact or blow or earthquake kind of action. And in his opinion, they undermine the entire design basis of the entire facility. And he was in a meeting with his boss and the nuclear regulatory inspector, and he started to mention this, and his boss literally shushed him, literally put his finger to his lips and was like, "Don't talk about that." And he was shocked that his boss was able to do that right there with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the same room. He looks over at the nuclear regulatory guy, who just happens to be looking over his shoulder at the wall, just at the same time that his boss had told him, "Shh." That is shocking to me. That is really shocking. And thank you, Mr. Truth, for that truth. And so basically what we're dealing with, what that tells me is this, is that there is a culture within the nuclear power industry and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission which allows certain things which are not necessarily a critical thing right now, i.e. they aren't breaking at the moment, to continue to slide. Just like that. Like at Fukushima. Anybody who has thoroughly studied the Fukushima event will know that it was bad airlines that caused the meltdowns. It was in a way a loss of power, but they got power. Then they got all the batteries together. If you remember, they lost power. The cores melted, but they're still trying to get water over them, and so they pulled together a whole bunch of batteries in order to operate this air pump, which in turn actuates the valve, and it wouldn't work because the airlines are all broken up. And so they couldn't initiate critical emergency systems, which would have contained the event much more than it did get contained. Because I believe, just like in the United States, the little details were missing. We didn't use a big heavy-duty supply line for the emergency core spray system. We didn't have a battery backup just in case we lost power on the emergency core spray system. We didn't have it. And so the reactors melted down. And that is still occurring, don't forget. Don't think that just because it was 8 years ago that it's not still just as bad. Woods Hole Scientific did a survey of the ocean water in California, and they have found in several different San Luis Obispo and other locations, ever increasing levels of cesium-137. It was about 2 becquerels per cubic meter of water per, I think, second disintegrations. It is now 6 becquerels, and then this is just cesium. Okay, so that means you've got 6 cesium atoms disintegrating per second in every cubic meter of seawater along the California Pacific coast. A lot of people would say, well, that's well within safety margins. But if it's cesium, it's not. There's no such thing as a safe amount of cesium. If a fish gets cesium into it, and then you somehow eat the fish and you get the cesium into you, for the next 30 years, that's going to continue to blast alpha and beta, and you're going to probably get some sort of issues from that. I was talking to Lana Clark last week, and I think that, honestly, that a lot of our diseases that we're having today as a society that are blamed on things like smoking cigarettes, air pollution, bad diet, etc., are actually just effects caused by the nuclear fallout that we have been subjected to from all the testing that they've done, all the actual detonations that they've done right here on United States soil, to the waste, which is now perpetuating everywhere and building up and building up and building up. You know, we have so many. I think John Oliver did a show about nuclear waste, and it's like we have 1,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools full of solid nuclear waste. That's just fuel bundles and whatnot. 1,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And those will be hot and deadly for no less than 10,000 years. You know, even in 10,000 years, they're going to be deadly if you stay around them very long. So, and that is one thing that Mr. Science wanted to talk about yesterday. He wanted to talk about half-lives. He said half-lives are important. And I agree. Trying to understand how much of a substance will be remaining, you know, and a lot of times you hear, well, that has a half-life of 3 years, right? And it's like, well, that's not bad. And I think people in their mind somehow think that half-life and that means in 3 years it'll be gone. But the way I look at it is this. This is the way I look at half-lives, all right? And according to Wikipedia, it takes 8 half-lives for something to become gone and be something else. 8 half-lives. All right? At 3 half-lives, you still have 12% of that substance, or an eighth of it remaining. So, cesium. Okay, cesium-137 has a half-life, I believe, of 30 years. All right? So that means that in order for the cesium to get down to 1/8 of the amount that it is now, you're going to have to do 3 half-lives, or 90 years. You know, it's going to take another 4 half-lives before it's all gone. And it degrades probably to cesium-135 or other things, which are still radioactive. But it will, look at it like this. Within 150 years, you could probably safely say that the majority of the cesium is gone from any given incident where the cesium is created. Okay, that's a bit different than 30 years. Okay, they're telling you 30 years, and everybody's like, whew, well, that's good, only 30 years. Well, 30 years is only 1/8 of the amount of time that it takes to disappear. Maybe that's how they should look at half-lives. You know, so let's say you have a gram of a substance that will kill you in 1 minute. Okay, just being there. Gamma and a neutron source, for instance. And you wait for the half-life of that thing, right? It'll kill you in 1 minute. And then after that half-life, it's going to take 2 minutes now to kill you instead of 1. Does this make sense? After 2 half-lives, it'll be 3 minutes. Do you see what I mean? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before it's gone. And so it's not like, let's say plutonium doesn't get any, we say plutonium has a half-life of 240,000 or 24,000 years, right? So at 8 half-lives, you know, that gives you, let me find that out really quick. My computer is so slow. I bought a Dell XPS at a secondhand store for $80 with a monitor, and it's a beautiful thing. I don't know. Look up Dell XPS 7200 and you'll see it's a beautiful thing. It's a big aluminum case, but it has 12-year-old hardware in it. So now I'm working on the half-life here. Times 8 half-lives is 192,000 years. That's how long it takes for plutonium to, all of it, to degrade to whatever is next in the chain that it degrades to. So that's a long time. You know, that's a long, long, long time. You know, in 192,000 years, human civilization could have risen and fallen 12 times. That's just amazing. Our history goes back 6,000 years. We can find stuff that goes back maybe 10,000 years from humanity, but the bottom line is, in the last 50 years, we've created 1,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools full of a substance which will be deadly for 191,000 years. How is that at all wise, folks? How you're living in the age of fission? How is there any wisdom involved in this? How is there any wisdom involved in having an engineer tell you, this isn't safe, and you're going, shh, that's going to cost extra money, don't say that. They might slow down the project and then we'll lose money, don't say that. What's it boil down to? Money. You know, and it seems like money overrides safety, and that is why we've had every nuclear accident that we've ever had. You know, and one thing I'm going to start doing on my Wednesday show every week is I'm going to go through the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission's event notification report for that week. And the event notification report is whenever there's a nuclear incident in the United States, whether that be a medical power plant, whatever, X-ray source, whatever, they have to post an event report to the NRI, who then puts it on their website. So for this week, let's start at the top. First one is Rapid City Regional Hospital in South Dakota. Non-emergency. The patient was prescribed 8 fractions of 500 gray units in the temple area. During the 3rd fraction, the physician noticed that 2 fractions were performed incorrectly. The first 2 fractions were performed with an incorrect setup. They're dosing people with an incorrect setup. The patient received less than 50% of the dose that he was supposed to at the temple. They're putting radiation into this poor guy's brain, probably to try to kill a tumor. Just And then it says a medical event may indicate potential problems in a medical facility's use of radioactive materials. It does not necessarily result in harm to the patient. That's interesting. Next, Pilgrim reactor in Massachusetts. This is a non-emergency known as degraded condition or unanalyzed condition. Okay? And the problem is this: the control rod drive piping is potentially inoperable at the Pilgrim power plant. On March 25th, 2018, at 1616 hours Eastern Daylight Time, with the reactor in cold shutdown, 2 control rod drive piping lines were determined to be potentially inoperable in the event of a design basis earthquake due to support defects. The control rod drive piping forms a portion of the reactor coolant pressure boundary and the primary containment boundary. So these are the sleeves that the control rods slide up and down through. to get into the reactor. And they just determined that in the event of a design basis earthquake, okay, think about that, a design basis earthquake, when they say that, they mean that we built this facility to withstand this level of earthquake. And they're saying that potentially they could become inoperable given an earthquake. And what that means is this. You've got a reactor. It's going at 100%. The control rods are all the way out. It's whipping along. And you have an earthquake. The earthquake shakes the crap out of the building. It breaks these sleeves that the control rods slide into and jams the control rods in the out position. So at this point, wherein all the emergency control systems are immediately scram, drop the control rods now. The control rods won't drop. Okay, you're running the reactor at 100%. You just had an earthquake. Hopefully, your containment vessel and other piping related to the cooling process stays viable. But you can't shut that reactor down. If that fails, you can't shut it down. You can't. You have to somehow get up there. And at Pilgrim, I believe it is a GE reactor, and so that means that the control rods are inserted from below, and so there would be basically no way to fix that. You would basically have a humming hot 100% reactor with no way to shut it down. And if anything happened, you would have no way to stop a critical chain reaction. You know, I encourage all of my listeners, go to YouTube and look up nuclear reactor startup. Okay, look that up and find videos. And there's some videos on there of certain research reactors in colleges and stuff starting up. And watch it. And it takes about 3 or 4 minutes for it to get up to blazing white hot power levels. You know, and it starts out very pretty with kind of a blue color, but it gets whiter and whiter and whiter and hotter. And you can literally see that is like a little mini sun going on in there. And if you can't cool it appropriately, it will. And if you can't insert control rods to keep the sun from going critical, well, boom. You have yourself a nuclear bomb. That's basically what it's boiled. A dirty bomb. Not a real efficient bomb, but enough to blow up and spit radioactive debris over. The Pilgrim goes. Bye, Massachusetts. See ya. Probably Lake Michigan, too. Bye. See ya. You know, how do we allow this to continue? How do people, the public, who's able to see this report, not come here, see this, and become frightened to even live anywhere within 100 miles of these reactors? All right, here's the next one. Watts Bar in Tennessee. Non-emergency. And it says accident mitigation. Temporary loss of control room envelope boundary. At 10:58 Eastern Daylight Time on March 26, 2018, a main control room alarm was received for low control room positive pressure. At 11 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, a control room envelope door was found ajar and immediately closed. Technical specification 3.7.10 control room emergency ventilation system was declared not met for both trains and condition B entered. At 11 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time on March 26, 2018, the alarm cleared. CREVS was declared operable and LCO, limiting conditions for operation, was exited. The safety function of the CRE boundary is to ensure that in-leakage of unfiltered air into the control room will not exceed the in-leakage assumed in the licensing basis analysis of design basis accident consequences to CRE occupants or the control room occupants. So basically, it looks like one of the important things about a nuclear plant is having your control room not be melted down with the reactor. If the reactor is melting down, you want to still be able to operate the cooling systems and other things that are necessary to keep it from going basically into China syndrome, more or less. So if you lose air pressure there, then that means you could get a big blast of radioactive and other nasties, other poisonous gases, which could be emitted from a breached containment vessel and literally kill everybody in the control room or make it so radioactive that there's no way you can go in there, at which point you can't use it. So that's kind of a scary thought. Here's the next one. Power reactor, Farley is the name of it, in Alabama. Non-emergency, plant S/D required by TS. Ho, 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 ho. Technical specifications required shutdown due to inoperable main steam isolation valve. On March 25th, 2018, at 1833 Central Daylight Time, while at 100% power, Farley Unit 1 conservatively declared a single main steam isolation valve inoperable on the 1C steam generator line due to indication of steam generator pressurized with a corresponding reduction in flow of that loop. So the pressure went up, yet the water flow was going down. They began a reactor shutdown at 4 o'clock on March 26 and established plant conditions to support testing the affected main steam line. So the main steam line is basically the main line that carries steam out of the reactor into the turbines, which spin and then it gets condensed back into water. So if you lose, and this type of plant has two loops, it's called a two-loop system. So you have a reactor in the middle, and then on either side of the reactor you have two what they call a steam generator. And a steam generator is basically you're running super hot water from the reactor through a bunch of copper pipes in a thermos-shaped thing. And then you're running cold or cool water through that, which flashes into steam as soon as it hits those super hot pipes. And that steam powers a turbine. So the steam, not only is the purpose of the steam to power a turbine, but the steam itself leaving the reactor, the exchange of heat energy that goes on in that steam generator is critical to the safety and operation of the reactor. If you lose any way to flow for heat to relieve and leave the system, well, then the heat will quickly build up. And so they literally had to shut the reactor down for that until they can figure it out. And they don't even know what had happened yet. But you notice it was a valve. So it's a steam valve, okay, which is a hydraulic valve or a pneumatic valve, most likely. So it might be airline problems. Next on the list, Watts Bar in Tennessee. Okay, this is another positive air pressure control room event. So that's just from March 27th, folks. We've got Pilgrim, which is still, I think they're getting ready to shut it down, or they should shut it down. It's obviously degraded beyond redemption at this point, but all of our whole nuclear power infrastructure is aging at this point. It's all getting old. And it's going to start breaking. And they know that. And that's why it's so damn expensive to run a nuclear plant. So our entire infrastructure is aging, old, and weak. The very sleeves the control rods slide through in order to control the reactor itself are bad. So, damn. And there's nothing we can do about it, folks. They're going to continue to operate Pilgrim. I know they are. Let me look up Pilgrim. I think Pilgrim is Pilgrim Power Plant. I should probably say Power Plant, huh? Here we go. Pilgrim Power Station. It is the only nuclear power plant operating in Massachusetts. It's located in Manomet section of the Plymouth on Cape Cod Bay. It was constructed by Bechtel and is powered by a General Electric boiling water reactor Mark III. Inside of a Mark I type pressure suppression type containment and generator. Has a 690 megawatt capacity and produces 14% of the electricity used in Massachusetts. In 2015, plant owners announced it would close by June 1st, 2019, citing market conditions and increased costs, which include tens of millions of dollars of unnecessary safety upgrades. That's what they said. It costs $231 million to build, and it keeps its spent fuel in an on-site storage pool waiting for federal direction and correct disposal process. The Pilgrim's original license to operate would have expired in 2012, but in 2006, Entergy filed an application for extending it until 2032. Think about it. It's not able, in the opinion of these engineers, to withstand a design-level earthquake. And they're trying to extend the license of this thing until 2032, which is, what, 14 years from now? 14 more years of running at 100%, at high power, at high pressure, where at any minute, you could experience catastrophic. It's just terrible. So what do we do, folks? What do we do with this situation where we have a need for energy and a need to produce less carbon, and so got tricked into this? It's another thing that Mr. Truth talked about, was that it was because of global warming. That's why they were able to go forward with so many nuclear plants. There's 100 of them in the United States. And I think that's just power facilities. I don't know how many operating reactors there are in institutions, on Army bases, Air Force bases. How it's hard to tell. It's hard to know. But I know that there are many piles of nuclear poison going on right now in our country. And the kids are sure able to get up and talk about gun violence. I wish that the same kids would get up and start talking about, where's our future? How are you going to ensure our future? What's going to happen to the children of those kids? The same high schoolers that are protesting assault weapons and calling for sensible gun violence, and by the tens and hundreds of thousands, need to be out there by the tens of hundreds of thousands saying we need to shut down every single nuclear reactor on the planet, not just in the United States. You know, you think ours are bad. You think Pilgrim's bad. Okay. Imagine if you went to some lower tech country, okay, that has nuclear power, who's been running a reactor for the last 20 or so years at 100% or more, pushing it as hard as they can get every scrap of energy they can out of the reaction. You know, and that's it. It's like, it'll run at 110%. Well, okay, let's run it at 110% then. That's how many more dollars? And again, there it all boils down to money. So we need to wake the youth of this world up, folks. They don't see it coming. They do not see it coming. And that is really sad that they don't see it coming. I wish they could see it coming. I see it coming. And many of the activists in the world see it coming. So it's just, I don't know. I get very, very frustrated sometimes when I'm wanting to be an activist. I want to make changes for the better in the world. I want to see our biosphere healthy. I want to see our population healthy. I want to see our children happy and having a hope for a good future. And I'm just not seeing that. I see there's a conspiracy against life, for the lack of a better way to put it. It's a conspiracy against life. You know, just like we say in our intro, we're dealing with powers that view us as assets on a balance sheet and view our lives individually as expendable to a certain extent. You know, it's like, yeah, you're important, but there's a percentage chance, according to our math, that you're going to get cancer from the tritium that we're putting out here. I hope it's not you, because I happen to like you. Okay, somebody will get it. I hope it's not you. So we're allowing this. We're allowing our government to poison us. And we're okay with that. We're okay with that. How could we possibly be okay with that? You know, how could we possibly be happy and okay with something which eventually is going to create loss of life on the planet as we know it? You know, and if you talk to Guy McPherson, I listened to this fellow, his name is Guy McPherson, and he is convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that humanity has about 8 years left from today. 8 years, and then we're going to be all gone, dead. I have a hard time really believing that. But then again, you know, I don't know. He says that we're going to have catastrophic issues with temperature change, basically, and then drought, and then collapse of our society, our species, if you will, as you know it. I'm really hoping that's not the case. I'm really, 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 really hoping that's not the case, because I don't want that to be the case. I don't want life as we understand it on the surface of this planet to just go away because we decided 50 years ago we could split atoms and get away with it. We still don't have a repository. We still don't have a way, and I just literally read that in the about the Pilgrim power plant. Every bit of spent fuel that ever was created at that plant is sitting in a common spent fuel pool, and the same for every other nuclear plant. All the other 90 or so nuclear power stations in the United States, every fuel bundle that they ever consumed is still on site, still sitting there, still loaded even worse than it was. You know, a nuclear reactor takes a fuel bundle, which you can walk up to, and turns it into something that will kill you from 100 feet for thousands of years. So it's just sad. You know what? We don't have the wisdom to deal with this situation. We don't possess not only the wisdom but the technology. You know, there's probably some magic way of somehow reinitializing the matter in some of these nuclear wastes that we have and making it turn into lead, transmuting it, if you will. There is ways to do that. We just don't know what they are. Or if we do, they're too expensive. And there you get back to money again. Are we going to spend money? No, not for that part. We're going to spend money on power plants, licensing, and propaganda, but we won't spend money on safety systems, proper equipment, or a solution to the waste problem that is being created. So keep in mind, folks, cesium levels are going up and up and up and up. You know, if you look at just go to the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute's website and look up their radiation monitoring. It's probably there somewhere. But let's see if I can find it. Woods Hole. Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. And they've been doing analysis since 2011 of the water. And I'm just going to search for cesium if it'll let me. Let's see, cesium. Let's see if we get anything. Here we go. First thing. Higher levels of Fukushima cesium detected offshore, December 3rd, 2015. Scientists monitoring the spread of radiation in the ocean from Fukushima report finding an increased number of sites off the U.S. West Coast showing signs of contamination from Fukushima. This includes the highest detected level to date from a sample collected about 1,600 miles west of San Francisco. The level of radioactive cesium isotopes in the sample was 11 becquerels per cubic meter of seawater, about 50% higher than other samples collected along the West Coast so far, but is still more than 500 times lower than the U.S. government's safety drinking limits, and well below the limits for concern for direct exposure. But if you look, and I'm not seeing they have a list of, you can see that over the years that the levels of cesium have trended upward all along the west coast of the United States. And there's a certain amount still left over from the Cold War and World War II area. And that was at about 1 to 2 becquerels per meter of water. That's 1 to 2 disintegrations per second of cesium in the water. And now there's 8 right off the coast of San Francisco. And so that's moving west, okay? And they say 8 is just fine for human health. But, you know, I don't know about that. I really don't. I think that if you were to somehow get some ocean water, and there was a particle of cesium in there and you got it in your body, it would most likely give you cancer. So there is no safe level of radiation. Don't listen to the government when it tells you there's safe levels of ionizing radiation. Okay, radiation covers everything from heat to light and everything in between. But ionizing radiation kills DNA. So that's what we're worried about, is the ionizing stuff. Things that matter disintegrating, not a good thing. So the ocean currents are carrying all that cesium towards the coast of the U.S. Every year, the level goes up. It goes up and up and up. And that's cesium-137, 135, and 134 that they're detecting for. So what are we going to do, folks? We're move away from the West Coast. I mean, I'm living 50 miles from the ocean right now, and I could not be happier with my location. I absolutely love Oregon. It's, in my opinion, the prettiest state in the United States. In Eugene, I literally am living in the middle of a rainforest. That's what it feels like. The air is clean and smells like the woods. It doesn't have a yucky city smell. The whole state is beautiful. It's green. It's lovely. However, my survey of the coastline so far doesn't pick up a whole lot of life. So far, we've got green sea anemones, and that's about it. That's about all we could find in the tidal pools so far off of the coast of Oregon. And we've covered probably about a 20 to 25 mile range where we've gone up and down and looked at tidal pools. Some of the beaches, like Hecata Beach, was totally dead, completely, totally dead. There was no anemones. There was nothing. The areas like the Devil's Churn as well were mostly dead. No sea stars anywhere. We did not see not even one sea star. Like I said, the only thing we've really seen is green sea anemones. They seem to, and a few mussels here and there. They seem to be able to survive it. But not like the rocks literally clustered with huge numbers of big mussels like it used to be. So we're getting it. It is happening, folks. I would say take lots of iodine to keep your thyroid gland flush with iodine, so it's not uptaking cesium, which is what it does. Cesium goes to the thyroid and other muscles as well, but the thyroid it mimics iodine, and so the body thinks it's iodine, and so the body takes it up. It separates it. It literally separates it from the other things and intentionally sucks it up. That is one of the dangers of radioactive materials, is a lot of them mimic organic materials like calcium, like what did I just say? I forget. My brain just turned off. Iodine, calcium, iron, other things, and your body thinks that that's normal iodine, and it isn't. It's actually cesium, and it's going to destroy the thyroid gland, and that's what happens. So it's just, boy howdy. So where do we go from here? I guess that's the point that we're at now. Where do we go from here? What do we do about this? Do we do anything about this? Or is it just a matter of, well, I guess we're just screwed? I don't know. I really don't know. I am radium-based estimates of cesium transport and total access estimates of cesium from nuclear Fukushima. Let's see what this is. It's a PDF, so it might have some pretty good data, perhaps. A lot of it, they'll say, yeah, there's cesium in the water, but then they go, but it's perfectly safe. watch out, the boogeyman's there, but he can't get you. You know, where's the justice for the people? So radium has 4 naturally occurring isotopes. Okay, so they're using radium to track. Oh yeah, this is actual science and stuff. I can't read this online. But they did a big study, it looks like. Woods Hole did, of the radium water mass over time at different stations. So I'll have to investigate this. I may report on this report tomorrow. We'll have to see how that goes. So here we go. They're finding new sources. Scientists find new sources of radioactivity from the Fukushima disaster. Scientists have found a previously unsuspected place where radioactive materials from Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant have accumulated in sands and brackish groundwater beneath beaches. That's up to 60 miles away from the plant. So yeah, that's what cesium does. It's a heavy thing. And so it floats through the air and then it drops. And when it rains and whatnot, it just works its way deeper and deeper into the soil. And then it gets down into this layer of brackish water, which is pretty much the part of the runoff from the watershed. And it just sends it right out into the ocean. And that's what we're doing. All the cesium that was released from Fukushima is making its way into the ocean, and it will. And then it will make its way across the ocean and land on the coast of western United States, because that's just the way the currents are working. And it'll leave a big radioactive plume trail across the ocean all the way across, too. So let's hope we don't see the death of our oceans, you know. Let's hope we don't. It's I suggest that everybody goes to the Woods Hole's website. It looks like they have a decent website. Not bad. Really not too bad. Our Radioactive Ocean website. I think this is the one that shows actual. It's a map that goes across the Pacific. You know, and that'll show us exactly what we're dealing with. Except now my internet connection decided to be slow for whatever reason. It's kind of sad. Here we go. How radioactive is our ocean? And they want money. Impacts of radiation in the ocean. Let's see. Gosh, I don't know. So it's in the ocean, it's in marine life, and I'm looking at a 9-second animation, and you can see the plume emits from Japan, and it literally comes straight across and slam-bastes the Gulf of Alaska and the whole western United States, with up to 10 becquerels per cubic meter of seawater. You know, it started off at 10,000 plus becquerels per cubic meter emitting from the plant. And so that's what's coming out of those brackish waters 3 or 4 feet deep under the sand, is that 10,000 level cesium, which is now emitting into the ocean. And so you're now, instead of a giant, huge plume, you've got a slow, steady plume. But keep in mind, cesium is dangerous for, what did we say, 100 years? So even though it's got a 30-year half-life, don't be fooled by that. So for the next 100 years, that cesium will continue to migrate its way across the Pacific. And the strontium. Beryllium. There's huge number of radioisotopes which are being steadily released from that plant every single day. They're pouring water over it. The groundwater is flowing through it. Literal streams of water. I don't know if anybody has seen this video. It shows the basement level of the power plant. I think it was number 4 because they could kind of get in there. But you could see water literally gushing through the wall into the building from the surrounding groundwater, literally gushing into the building. Like, just from that one spot, probably 1,000, 2,000 gallons an hour. And then it basically gushes in. It goes and intermixes with all the radioactive water that is in the building and then out into the ocean through the trenches. They even put trenches in it to help it direct itself into nice deep water. So there is that. You know, we've got that huge source. That's a huge point source, which will continue on in perpetuation. You know, it's not going to. There's no way to clean it up. There's no way to get to it. There's no way to stop it. And why aren't the young people out and by the hundreds of thousands demanding that TEPCO and Japan and everybody else in the world get together to do something about this? You know, what we need is we need to activate the youth of the world. That's the only way to do it. You know, the history has shown that when the youth become activated, then you get societal changes. So, for better or for worse, you know, we need to activate the youth right now and get them involved and get them in the streets and get them voting with their wallet as well. You know, if every young person in the world decided I am going to Hitachi, and who makes nuclear power plants? Hitachi, General Electric. Okay, you know what? Westinghouse, we're not ever going to buy another product manufactured by you or supported by you. And that includes your subsidiaries. As long as you are going to continue to try to build nuclear power plants, you know, our dollar is what will speak. You know, if everybody boycotted nuclear power, it's like, okay, does my power come from nuclear? Yes, well then I'm going to get solar panels and a generator or something else. I'll figure out some other way. It would be cleaner to burn diesel fuel in a generator to power your house than to allow the power plant splitting atoms down the street to feed you power. It would be more environmentally conservative to burn the shittiest, the worst, filthiest diesel generator that you could possibly imagine 24 hours a day than it would be to let that quote-unquote clean green power come into your house from the plant. You know, so we need to get up. We need to protest. We need to raise a little bit of hell, folks. We really do. You know? Because if we don't, then we will end up paying the price. And that is the truth. So the North Pacific, 1.8 becquerels per meter squared at this point of cesium-137. The Irish Sea, 61 becquerels per meter squared. The Baltic Sea, 40 becquerels per meter squared. The Black Sea, 16 becquerels per meter squared.